Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for joining me today to talk about detoxification, new insights, and ancient practices and proven solutions. So today what I would like to do is to go over things that are probably known to most of you, but try to give some insights, a little bit more of an holistic view to what detoxification means and how we can make it more meaningful and more effective. So when we look at detoxification from a simplified point of view, and we look at the liver as a central organ, the liver is a fascinating organ, and it's worthwhile touching it. It's the organ of the spring in Chinese medicine. We are towards the end of the spring, but it's a good time to touch on the liver. The liver in Chinese medicine has the quality of being a central place where many systems funnel into. It has a quality of detoxification, of getting rid of things, of letting go of the past, and it has a quality of generating compounds for the future. So the liver is the organ that from our time perspective in our body can gauge and balance the past and the present and the future within our body. So as such, if we look at what happened, the liver gets input from the lung through our breathing, from the skin, and from our gut, from our food. So it gets both nutrients, but it also gets toxins. And at the same time, when it puts out toxins, they will go to the lungs and we'll exhale them out. We let them go of them through the colon, through our stools, through our skin, and through our kidneys. And that's a very simplified version of what we call the detox cycle, which is a little bit more complex, and it's a whole subject by itself. I won't go into it. But what's interesting to recognize when we look at this diagram is the detoxification is really not a special event. We're all aware that our exhalation is twice as long as our inhalation. So we actually detoxify most of our life. Every time we exhale, we actually detoxify with every exhalation. And the exhalation can be exhalation of CO2, can be exhalation of toxins. And we use the breath as the image, but the same letting go happens in the kidneys, happens in the skin, happens in the gut. But we can also let go of emotions. We can let go of patterns of thinking. And from this sense, detoxification is what creates space in our body to create a change. I want to emphasize this supposedly theoretical understanding, philosophical understanding, because that's the difference between getting profound results and okay results. Understanding the deeper meaning of the processes in the body, how they relate to our microcosmos on different levels, and how they relate to the bigger world. You know, when we exhale carbon dioxide, where does this carbon dioxide go to? When we inhale oxygen, where is the oxygen coming from? These are all questions that show the relationship between our body and the environment. So within it, we have the more scientific understanding of detoxification, and our system, as we're saying in this slide, is designed for continuous processing and elimination of endogenous and exogenous molecules and toxins. So obviously, in an environment that is more toxic, this system is more challenged. So when we look at detoxification activity, we have to look at who is the person who is doing it. We look at our genetic polymorphism, different SNPs, different mutations that are affecting our detoxification system, which part of our body detoxifies better, which doesn't. We look at our age and our gender. It's a very interesting point, just like in the spring, for example, when we detoxify in order to be more active during the summer when the days are longer, our energy is more out, we are more active, everything is moving faster. In the fall, when we detoxify, we let go so we can go into a dormant stage in the winter. But the same process is in our life. When we are young, we detoxify so we can do more and create more. When we are old, we detoxify so we can be lighter when we leave this world. So all of these are things that are affecting us. And within it, we also have to look at the gender. Male, female, lunar cycle, timing, they all play an effect. I'm just mentioning it. We're not going to go in deep depth into it. And we have to look at our diet and lifestyle and environment. They really go together. If we are accumulating a lot of toxins through unhealthy food, through stressful lifestyle, it creates friction, it creates inflammation. If we're exposed to EMF, to heavy metals, to pollutants on all levels, there's going to naturally be more load on the detoxification system. And within it, we want to look at diseases. And within the disease, we want to look at what treatments we are actually getting. So to give maybe an example from oncology, which is my area of specialty, when you have a cancer patient that, let's say, is getting chemotherapy, or no matter, or some kind of other, maybe natural treatment, and there's a lot of shedding and breakdown of tissue that needs to be eliminated, we have to help the elimination system. We have to help the body eliminate what we want to get rid of through all the excretory organs, right? Through the colon, through the skin, through the lungs. But we don't want to increase the discharge. We don't want to detoxify other things that we don't have to deal with in the middle of such an intense process. When we are done with chemotherapy, when we are done with radiation, now we have time for deeper detoxification. So we have detoxification that is moved by the seasonal and our connection with nature, and we have detoxification that is determined by our disease and our medical treatments. And all of these come together into a very dynamic process. And within this process, we want to hold a holistic view that include preparing, exposing, binding, discharge and elimination, and support. So if we look at this, detoxification is not only binding toxins. We have to prepare for detoxification. We have to gather detoxification forces. So for example, we have to set time for detoxification. We can set up goals, what we are trying to eliminate. What do we want to change? For example, if you want to get rid of a certain disease, of a certain mental state, of a certain emotion, so there is space to fill it in with something different. And we want to expose what we want to get rid of. Very important, the whole issue of biofilm. So we can bind, we can discharge and eliminate, and we can support. So when we bind to toxin, we bind them both in the circulation and in the organs and eliminate them, discharge them. And we want to make sure that we eliminate them so they don't get reabsorbed in the gut, for example. So we have the binding in the circulation and in the tissue. And when it comes to the discharge and elimination, we want to create a balance between phase one, the biotransformation by cytochrome 450, that makes fat-soluble toxins water-soluble. And then we want to actually exposes them. It's not they're less toxic. They actually become more available for us. We open the drawers and they're all out. It's like taking the kitchen, opening all the drawers and throwing everything on the counter. And now we have to eliminate them through conjugation, through the urine, feces, and breath. And there's a lot of work on phase 1 and 2. I don't want to take the time talking about it too much. And within it, we have to support the system. One of the issues with detoxification, which is not balanced from a Chinese point of view, and from a clinical point of view, is that we can have somebody who is very clean and very wiped out, without energy, without vitality, because they lost minerals, they lost nutrients, they lost their vitality. So we want to support the energy production. We want to support, from a modern point of view, the metabolic system, the mitochondrial function, eliminate areas of acidosis, and we want to support healthy digestive system so we can handle the big discharge that usually happens and elimination that happens in the gut. We want to support the gut microbiome. It's critical. It's kind of amazing what a role a microbiome is playing. You know, I'm looking back at my career and I recognize the importance of pectins, of modified citrus pectin, and as a prebiotic for the immune system. So I discovered this and I have a patent for it and I did some studies on it about almost 15 years ago, where it really, there wasn't attention for this. And now when I look at this, it's, you know, we are starting a clinical trial now on pectasol-c modified citrus pectin with PD-L1 inhibitors in urinary cancers, in bladder cancer, in prostate cancer. And we are taking stool tests to see the changes in the gut microbiome as an indication if the patient will respond to immunotherapy. It's kind of incredible. It's very exciting, you know, to see how things that we all believed in, you know, and the issue of please don't take too much antibiotics that we were laughed at, you know. And now it's becoming a central piece of the next generation of medicine. So it is exciting. It just takes some time for the standard, which is not ahead of the curve, to catch up. And then we talked about the balancing of phase 1 and phase 2 ratios and helping the discharge and the elimination. Discharge from the tissue to the circulation, elimination out of the body. So within the system, I'm not going to talk a lot about nutrition because there are so many different dietary regimens. Basically, of course, we want to eliminate anything that is sticky. So minimal carbohydrate, no sugars, of course, especially refined sugar, no gluten, which is sticky. That's where the concept comes from. When you wet sugar, it becomes sticky. No milk products, lighter food, a lot of vegetables, a lot of fiber. But in addition, we want to have enough amino acids, enough protein. So especially sulfur amino acids. So we know that we can actually, we can bind heavy metals, we can bind toxins and get them out of the body. So we need, within this, I just want today to present 3 preparations that will create a basic program for detoxification. Modified citrus pectin, pectasol-c, and alginates in the combination. A unique detox formula that kind of encapsulates the whole philosophy. And medicinal mushrooms, which are really one of my favorites. Mushrooms, per definition, have the tendency to go into areas that are dead, right? They eat dead material. Any area that is toxin in the body, that is very acidic, that is not functioning normally, is area that from the body's perspective, we have less control of. So when we start the detoxification process, when we create the opportunity, it starts by creating time. So if we have a very busy schedule, if your patients have a busy schedule, or if you have a busy schedule, I think, and I hope that all of us engage in detoxification. It's ideal in the spring. For many, many years, I would go on a retreat to the mountains for about 2 to 3 months. I used to go in the winter, into the spring. And I would always do detoxification during this time because it was really a window of opportunity, because I had the time. So the idea that when you let go of what we don't need anymore, then we create space for change. We create space for renewal. And that's the power of renewal of detoxification. And we see it in the breath cycle. We exhale, we detox, we inhale, we nourish, and within the relationship between the two comes the transformation, the change on the capillary level, the healing. So when we look at detoxification from a more holistic point of view, we use an Asian Buddhist term called body, speech, and mind. So body is detoxification on the level of the substance, of the form. We engage by using diet, by using herbs, by using nutrients, and we want to create a change in the tissue level. But we also want to create a change in what we call subtle energy, movement, breath, emotions, create a movement in the body. And we want to change it, create a change in our mind. We want our mind to be less sticky, less grasping when we have feelings or thought, less identified. The process, the pathological process, actually starts from the mind until it goes all the way to the body. So we may be preoccupied from a thinking point of view, grabbing to thoughts and making them very sticky, which affects us emotionally. And we can feel stressed in the body when we are emotionally off. And then we go to the gym or we take a walk and we move and we feel better. So we're creating stagnation, stickiness from an energetic point of view that then slowly starts showing physiologically. Our cholesterol, oxidized cholesterol goes up, maybe CRP goes up. Lipoprotein A is more of a genetic issue, but it may be getting a little bit higher. Ferritin gets higher. We start seeing TGF beta gets higher. We start seeing galectin-3, of course, gets higher. We start seeing more stagnation. And then eventually it affects our body. And we get stuckness in areas where we're not supposed to get stuckness. And the classical image, of course, is a tumor, which is a growth, solid manifestation where it's not supposed to be. And for the ones who are asking, what about lymphomas and leukemias, they also fall in this model, but a little bit different. So we live in an age of inflammaging, in age that inflammation and fibrosis are driving the aging process. So if the inflammation is just acute, and we can repair it very easily, it doesn't need real repair, it's just a response, then there is complete resolution, like you see in the slide right here, very small. We'll send you the presentation if you want. But the classical process is that the inflammation drives a repair process that then will end up creating a fibrotic tissue. And this is a basic degeneration system. That's a basic way of aging. If we can cut this process and just have perfect resolution, or we can reverse it, and we can many times, we will prevent inflammation, we will prevent aging. Detoxification is a key part of this process. So within this, we have to address the concept which is finally gaining a lot of popularity, and including in the microbiome, but everywhere, which is a biofilm, which is a key strategy in detox and chronic infection. As we said, the modern lifestyle creates inflammation and fibrosis, creates toxins, and slowly the biofilm diminishes our capacity to detect and remove toxins. We create hiding places for these toxins, what is called in Chinese medicine boxes, areas that we isolate so we don't have to deal with them. So while the bacteria and the viruses and the fungus and the parasites do it, we actually take an active part of it as an unsuccessful solution. We all know in our life we have to do something, we shove it in the drawer and say we'll get to it later. We may not be aware of it consciously, but it is in our energy field, it is in our unconscious, personal unconscious from a psychological point of view. That's why a lot of you know from your patients, when they start doing detoxification, which is appropriate, sometimes they get deep insight, they get dreams, they remember things from the past. Sometimes difficult stuff comes out. Sometimes they remember traumas because they have been stored in tissues and now they are being broken down. And this relates to the detox cycle that I've shown. So that's where issues like helping the energy move, like infrared sauna, walking, acupuncture, deep breathing, qigong, tai chi, create a movement so things don't get stuck. Oxygenating the body, all of it plays a role here. So the biofilm bind and incorporate these toxic compounds and metals, and it interferes with elimination, nutrient absorption in the gut, promotes and protects co-infection, and also it's what creates the arteriosclerotic plaque. It's what helps the cancer cell to hide. And we know the structure now. And a big part of this escape mechanism are the fatty tissues, the adipose tissue, because it really sequesters fat-soluble toxins, as we know, because often we can let's say that we are in the 60s and there is DDT in the soil, there's still now, by the way, and we absorbed it, and it's in our body, and it gets deposited in a fat-soluble toxin. And we never needed, as a fat-soluble, and we never needed to break this toxin, this fatty acid. Then the DDT is sitting in this area. That's why, for example, women's in the mammary pad, in the fatty tissue in the breast, DDT is dramatically higher than in other tissues. When we do detoxification, we are actually breaking the tissue. We need to make sure that we can get rid of these toxins. This is a discharge and elimination. This is why detoxification can have side effects if not done properly. Heavy metals have a tendency to bind to oxidized fats. I see a lot of this very uniquely because of the privilege of specializing in therapeutic apheresis, where we specifically clean fat-soluble toxins by filtering the blood at a Amitabha clinic and removing fat-soluble toxins that are positively charged, heavy metals of course, and then we challenge the body to excrete more of them. The reason why we can allow ourselves to challenge the body is because we have a filter. So the next 2 times plasma volume, or 1.5, we are artificially pulling out the toxins. The body doesn't have this capacity. So we have to be more gentle with how we plan this. And we also have to be aware of it when it comes to dieting. And because we mentioned the mammary pad and the fatty tissue, women who do a lot of dieting, it does increase, it weakens the system that protects the breast. It can increase the risk of breast cancer. So all of this comes into the structure of the fatty tissues. So we have the toxins, we have extracellular matrix that builds up in chains, and then we have this all big pile that has growth factors, heavy metals, infectious agents, and then it can break off and recreate itself in other ways. That's how, the spores of Lyme disease hide. That's why sometimes when one infection shows up, it triggers other infection because the biofilm is blown up. The basic structure that the biofilm is built on, and this time I decided to minimize the slides, but the galectin-3 is in a pentamer and it creates this lattice formation. We'll send you a slide of it. The basic structure that the biofilm is sitting on that creates the lattice formation that allows the immune system to hide, the bacteria to hide, the cancer to hide, that allows to create an acidotic, hypoxic area where you have more glycolysis, lactic acid, an area that is really not available for the body to fix. The basic structure is galectin-3. So, if we look at galectin-3 is an alarmin. It's what is an alarmin? Let me just write myself a note about something. So an alarmin is something that starts the chain of events that drives chronic inflammation and immune suppression. So for example, galectin-3 goes up very quickly during sepsis. It mobilizes the immune system, the inflammatory system, so it's really good in the first 90 minutes. But then it keeps on going and creates the injury repair, over-injury repair that creates fibrosis. So galectin-3 is the anchor on which inflammatory and adhesive molecules attach. It initiates pro-inflammatory, pro-fibrotic, proliferative signaling cascades. It's an upstreamer, and it drives cancer growth and metastases, inflammation and fibrosis, and organ failure. And we have a really nice diagram that I'm just writing myself a note that I do want to send to all of you. And we will send it later. So as such, it will drive cancer growth, metastasis, inflammatory fibrosis, organ failure, which means we can deal with many things downstream, but as long as galectin-3 is stimulating it, it will keep coming to us. And that's one of the reasons that it's so important to address galectin-3. And the galectin-3 levels are directly related to all-cause mortality, as well as mortality in heart failure, chronic kidney disease, cancer, etc. That's a very big study from the PREVENT study on all the offsprings from the study in the East Coast on 8,000 people that shows a direct relationship between galectin-3 levels and all-cause mortality over 10 years. It's important to notice that the highest 20% are 15.6, which is a low number. And today the discussion is not specifically on galectin-3 in a broad way, so I'm just touching it, and of course we have much more data for people who are interested. So, how do we address galectin-3? We address it by blocking it with modified citrus pectin. So pectasol-c modified citrus pectin, which I developed almost 25 years ago actually, is solidly proven to be a very effective galectin-3 blocker. I think we're up to 50 published papers, multiple clinical trials, 2 double-blind clinical trials finishing in Harvard now, on hypertension and congestive heart failure, on osteoarthritis, multi-center on prostate cancer. I just presented the data at ASCO, and now starting on PD-1 inhibitors in cancer and multiple indications. Why it has such wide indications? Because of its function. So as you can see, if you look, and I think you can see my arrow, this is a long chain of galacturonic acid, and this is an esterified one. So most of the galacturonic acid in regular pectins are this way, and they have a very high molecular weight, 50 to 300,000 kilodalton. We have to change the pectin to a low molecular weight, less than 15 kilodalton, decrease the esterification, and maintain the side chains of neutral sugar, rhamnose or arabinose, which we know are very important for chelation and for immune enhancement. Some of these are called rhamnogalacturonan 2, which is actually the immune-enhancing active ingredient in mistletoe, and in pectasol it's present in 10% of pectasol is actually rhamnogalacturonan 2. We published a paper on this with the USDA. So what does modified citrus pectin do? It comes to the CRD. This is, by the way, this lattice formation. So imagine this attaches with this, and you get a whole cover. You take immune cells, you put galectin-3, they stop excreting cytokines completely. You add a galectin-3 blocker, they start excreting again. Why? Because they block something called CD45. So here, if the bad guys get kicked out with pectin, MCP, it breaks down the pentamers and breaks down this lattice formation. And that's why it's so basic and so important. So the idea with modified citrus pectin, it's easily absorbed through the gut. We actually developed an antibody. We haven't published yet, but we have the data to pectasol-c, modified citrus pectin, and we showed that it can actually get absorbed into the bloodstream, and we have the pharmacokinetics at actually a relatively long half-life, more than we have thought originally, about 10 to 12 hours. This is why I feel more comfortable using it twice a day now. I mean, 3 times is always better, but you can use twice a day. So why modified citrus pectin specifically in detoxification? Because it's at the heart of detoxification, because of the multiple beneficial effects. So while we have this concept of detoxification as a as a time-defined process, which is true in a more intense way, we can understand that as part of needing to detoxify all the time, we have to address whatever creates stickiness and accumulation, right? I mean, we kind of emphasize it. And obviously, it is this structure that creates the accumulation of so many compounds that all of us know: fibronectin, integrin, different growth factor for cancer, different parts for the immune system, for the circulatory system. There's a long list of ingredients, VGF, they all sit here, but this is a culprit. So if we can actually prevent it from clumping together, we are creating detoxification on an ongoing basis. So it's really 5 action and 3 level of detox. It prepares by reducing inflammation and fibrosis in principle. In why it's so important, because the areas we need to detoxify are the same areas where the bacteria or the microbiome or microbiome is hiding, the pathological, where the heavy metals are hiding, when there is an arteriosclerotic plaque, where there is cancer that we can't get to. It's surrounded by this galectin-3 lattice formation. We need to reduce, we need to break it down. Then we need to enhance the immune system. That's a slide from a published paper showing how galectin-3 actually will neutralize the ability of the immune system to respond by blocking CD45. And when we tested modified citrus pectin compared to other immune-enhancing compounds that are known, there was no place for comparison. It was so much more effective. You know, it's fascinating. I know I'm kind of getting carried away, but I'm just involved now with so many designs of clinical trials. Most of the natural compounds have very promising results in cell line, in vitro, have very good results in animal studies, and usually don't work as well in clinical trials. Curcumin is a good example, and many others. Modified citrus pectin is the other way around. The best results for modified citrus pectin are in humans. In humans, modified citrus pectin slows the growth of biochemical relapse of prostate cancer in 80% of people, 80. In cell lines, in concentration that is higher than what we can get physiologically, it slows the growth of the cell by only 48%. It's unparalleled compound to having so much more effectiveness in humans. The reason is what we talked here, because it affects so many systems. And that's why it's key for detoxification, key for the body to be able to actually keep going. And again, we help the exposure by breaking the biofilm. It helps to eliminate toxin in the gut and in the body. And of course, it binds toxin heavy metal in the body, which we actually published quite a few numbers on. So modified citrus pectin binds heavy metals and toxins. Heavy metals are removed with MCP. It's supported by multiple peer-reviewed clinical studies. And this is based on the unique egg box structure of polyuronides that are pectins and alginates from seaweed. And you can see modified citrus pectin has a great affinity for lead, followed by mercury, cadmium, aluminum, arsenic, and also uranium, etc., and cesium, and much less for regular minerals. So it really doesn't deplete them. So that's a very important study that we did in China. We published only on 7 children. We had 3 more that were under 5 years old, so we didn't publish. And it was supposed to be on 20 children, but because at that time there was a lot of problem with lead-tainted toys from China, the Chinese stopped the study, the independent study. And you can see here, children that are hospitalized with toxic levels of lead, you can see some are, 50 microgram per 100 ml, that's a lot. And you can see in 3 weeks, a very dramatic decrease. I mean, still not totally acceptable, but quite the difference. But what's interesting, they were removed to a healthier environment, so you can say, well, they have less exposure. But look how much greater, and same with okay, so I guess we are missing a bar. So, but yeah, the number 7 is number 1. So, but what you are seeing here is a much more dramatic increase in excretion. So we have a decrease in blood level and a dramatic increase in excretion. So this shows that, of course, very highly significant. So pectins also remove radioactive cesium and dioxins. Really, one of the reasons how I got my initial idea about using modified citrus pectin is after the Chernobyl incident in 1986, many children were exposed to radioactive material through the food. And administration of pectin bound the positively charged ions, radioactive material, and reduced cesium by 33% compared to only 14% in control. And when you look at different fibers to see which one is most effective for removal of dioxin and other toxins and increasing fecal excretion, then definitely pectin leads the way. So specifically for detoxification, you want to use alginates together. And the reason is that alginates have a little bit of a different profile. And it also aids in preventing the reabsorption in the gut. So it's shown to bind and eliminate radioactive isotopes, dioxin and dioxin-like compounds, pesticides, and heavy metals. So the idea that when we combine alginates from kelp, which is high in hyaluronic acid, and not mannuronic acid, which is more effective for chelation, and you are cleaning the toxic soup, the toxic swamp, in the gut and inside the system. And because we are preventing the reabsorption, we can use lower dosages. This is in addition, so you can emphasize it during more intense targeted detoxification. In addition to taking modified citrus pectin ongoing because of its other benefits, but also as part of the detoxification process. So what about using more conventional pharmaceutical chelators? EDTA, DMSA, DMPS. These are powerful chelators that also can redistribute heavy metals and also deplete us from minerals. So I often will combine, for example, oral regimen of DMSA, also DMPS orally sometimes, on a pulse basis, and you guys know the protocol, 3 out of 14 days for DMSA. DMPS I will do 1 day every 2 weeks, and with ongoing chelation with modified citrus pectin or with modified citrus pectin with alginates. And what happens, it will prevent the reabsorption into other organs. It will help the discharge and elimination from the body. It will reduce redistribution. So moving on, I want to take a little bit of a look at layering of detox. It's the idea of transform, discharge, and eliminate. So we use a phase 1 and to create highly reactive intermediates, free radical damage. So these are very active materials, but then we are able to actually eliminate them. Yes. So this is a balance between phase 1 and phase 2 that again is not the focus of the discussion, but you want to have all the nutrients, all the minerals, all the amino acids, and have a balanced process between the two. It's when you push one too strong sometime, and it's not, phase 2 is not working well, you will get a worsening of the condition, in terms of the methylation problem, for example. That's why you have to, it's very good to give minerals for these people who have methylation issues. So the discharge from the different organs, and then the elimination, intestine, stool, the kidney, urine, lung, breath, and skin, sweat. And these are different cofactors that you are familiar with that are being used and are part of our basic detox complete support for modified citrus pectin. So for effective discharge and elimination, we want to have a balanced phase 1-2 activation, healthy mitochondrial function for robust energy production, adequate supply of building blocks, protein, carbs, fat, fiber, carbs, more minimal, and more just from mentioning them. Constant supply of critical nutrient cofactors, attention to SNPs in the metabolic detox pathway, and support the gut, really support the gut. Healthy bile. If someone has a problem with production of bile, we can support them, give them some ox bile, and support the gut both with probiotic and prebiotic. Modified citrus pectin is a proven prebiotic, about 3-4 papers with the USDA, but of course there are many other prebiotics. And try to heal the gut so you don't get reabsorption. So we want to aid discharge and elimination by balancing the phase 1 and 2, supporting energy, providing conjugation group donors, and giving botanical support, adaptogen, organ protection, antioxidant support. So I will go quickly and I will give more of a Western point of view, but there's a lot of dynamic relationship between the organs. The organs in the body have a relationship between them, both from a conceptual 5-element point of view, but also we know physiologically, biochemically, hormonally. It's really fascinating. So if we look at, so we want to really give different sulfur-containing compounds because each of them have an affinity for different relationship. MSM has a liver, digestion, skin relationship. N-acetylcysteine has a liver-lung relationship, right? When you have deep flame in the lungs, it's a mucolytic. But also for things that are stored in our body, deep emotions. For example, it chelates mercury. Mercury is a very heavy metal. It's heavy. It's like liquid. It sinks in, very sticky. So N-acetylcysteine has affinity for the lungs, has affinity for deep emotional stagnation, and has affinity for mercury. You can see the relationship. Taurine has a relationship between the liver and the brain, etc., etc. And then you have different botanicals that I will just give a few examples, and then I'm going to come back to this slide and try to give some energetic feeling. And then we want to give, different methyl groups that will help in different patterns. Calcium diglucarate will help hormonal detoxification, etc., etc. DMG, TMG will help more in the circulatory system. And then basic minerals. There are more, of course, but classical magnesium, zinc and selenium, and the different vitamins and cofactors. So I'll go over this really quickly. I don't really need to teach you about this. You probably know this better than me. These are the basic cofactors to help phase 1, phase 2. And then we have the unique botanical. So they are selected, they have the regular properties, but they are selected really based on a lot of their activities. So they help detoxification, they enhance circulation, they have a protective effect on the liver and kidneys, they help bind heavy metals, and they're adaptogenic. So if we go back to this diagram, so Chinese salvia danshen is a circulatory cools the body, which means reduces inflammation, herb that protects the relationship between the liver and the digestion and the liver and the heart and lungs. So when the liver is dumping into the lungs, we have to support the lungs. Chinese Smilax tufuling is a major detoxification herb and very unique. In Chinese medicine, it separates the pure from the turbid. So this herb allows the kidney to decide what it needs to eliminate, what is turbid and unclear, and what is pure that can go back into the body. So the herbs here are herbs that helps discharge and herbs that have helps elimination. So Smilax helps elimination. There are a few other ones. The golden rolls, Solidago helps elimination in the kidney, etc., etc. And we need to help circulation. So ginkgo will help circulation. Salvia will help circulation. So the brain can detoxify without too much oxidative stress. And now we can also pull more mercury from the brain. We can use cilantro. And the body needs energy. If the body has enough energy, it can detoxify. The classical adaptogenic herb that at higher dosages or combined serves to support detoxification is actually astragalus. And that's why it's in this formula. This is an example of the thinking, how in one formula you can get so many movements. And the last part that is very important is using medicinal mushrooms. Medicinal mushrooms are very unique. We use mycelium because mycelium is still dynamic. When the mushroom is in the mycelium form, it didn't finish growing. It has life in it. And mushrooms can clean issues of the past. We know that mushrooms counteract side effects of drugs, of cytotoxic drug, of antibiotics. Mushrooms can enhance the immediate immune system. Coriolus is a classical one. And mushrooms can train the immune system for the future. And the 10 mushrooms in 10 mushroom formula are built along this way with mushrooms that cover the whole digestion. For example, hericium for the esophagus, fulling for the upper digestion of the small intestine, pancreas, maitake and shiitake relationship between the digestive small intestine and the liver, and auriculo, mu'er for the end of the digestive system, for the rectum. So you can see how even mushrooms can cover the whole digestive system. And within it, as I mentioned, there's a protective effect, liver protective, antifibrotic, anti-inflammatory, detoxifying, immediate support, mitochondrial support, glucose regulation, and cytotoxic antimicrobial, and adaptogenic for the future, adrenal support, immunomodulatory, hormonal regulation, prebiotic, all of this will have an effect into the future. So it's really what I call, for example, this formula is what I call the ultimate medicinal mushroom multi-nutrient. It flows and covers all the parts of the body and all the time that we deal with. Damage from the past, function in the present, training for the future. So how do we use these? So during detoxification process, we'll use a pectasol metal detox or pectaclear. It's 3 twice a day on empty stomach, enough 15 to 30 minutes before food or 1 hour after. And for maintenance, 1 to 2 twice a day, more like 2. And then again, if somebody has chronic inflammation, you can keep doing the pectasol-c, the modified citrus pectin, 5 grams twice a day because you're getting some from here. And then you add the detox complete, 3 times 2 a day with meal, and maintenance 2 times 2. But after 6 months of doing it, you can even go to 2 once a day, just to help the system. And the mushroom immune support, 4 twice a day, and maintenance 2 twice a day. One thing that is unique with mushrooms that over time, they become more and more effective. You develop an anti-tolerance. You train the body, and the body's immunity by itself becomes stronger. Now, sometimes when you do detox, you need to address deeper issues. So if someone has insulin resistance, and I encourage you to check IGF-1. Sometimes there's a hidden metabolic issue that you won't see in regular blood test. And of course, insulin at rest and after food is very good. So insulin resistance, you can give advanced glucose support. For digestive support, complete digestive balance, that gives a fire to the digestion. For circulatory support, either comprehensive circulation support, Circutol, which is based on nattokinase, but again as herbs, or the famous PEDMA basic formula. And for mental support, Regenerest, which includes a little bit of honokiol, melatonin, and a unique herbal formula, or pure honokiol, which is also very anti-inflammatory. So to summarize, detoxification is more than binding toxins. We need to prepare the body. We need to expose toxins by enhancing immune surveillance and addressing biofilms, bind them effectively, discharge and eliminate, and support healthy gut. So I had a question for someone asked me that they've never seen GAL3 measured or monitored by a functional medicine doctor. Well, first it's sad. Okay, it should be. But let's talk about monitoring of galectin-3. So galectin-3 is a FDA-approved blood test paid by every insurance. It's formally approved as risk for congestive heart failure, but it's universally paid by insurance. Even Medicare pays for it. and it's a simple ELISA test. It's not expensive to do. The normal range you could see is around 9, 10, but even if it's just to 14 and 15, we are concerned already. You don't decide if to use modified citrus pectin by galectin-3. Who needs modified citrus pectin? Every breathing person, probably above the age of 30. If you look at my programs, and when I write programs, supplement programs, they are dynamic, like in cancer treatment, they change based on different cycles. If you look at my programs 10 years ago, most people maybe got pectasol-c modified citrus pectin, but not all of them. If you look at my programs now, it's the first thing I write. And this is because I'm convinced, based on research, there are over 8,000 papers on galectin-3. I'm convinced that modified citrus pectin is the most important supplement to take because it's directly related to aging, to fibrosis, to degeneration. So you give it unrelated to the levels of galectin-3 because the levels of galectin-3 in the blood, if they are high, it's a problem. But they may not be high because of different levels of MMP9, metalloproteinases, so they don't get broken a lot, but there's still an issue in the tissue. But if somebody has high levels of galectin-3, you know they need more than you were thinking. So if somebody is healthy and the galectin-3 is under 14, 5 grams a day is enough. But if somebody is quote-unquote healthy and the galectin-3 comes back 22, you're going to put them on 10 to 15 grams a day. And it works. You know, my galectin-3 was 17, relatively healthy, have some issues. Taking modified citrus pectin regularly, it's down to 11 now for almost 4 years. So I know that I've decreased my mortality risk by 2/3 in the next 10 years. So now I'm just at 5 grams a day because I'm at 11 and I'm relatively healthy. And even if I have a little bit of issues, I'm still under 12. So you give the modified citrus pectin unrelated to galectin-3. It's some of my colleagues, I was just communicating with some very well-known prostate cancer oncologists and group of people. You know, one thing that I was able to create in many levels is the best kept secret in town, people tell me. I think, how come people don't know about modified citrus pectin, about pectasol-c? You got clinical trials in Harvard, you're doing research with MD Anderson, you did research, you know, with Colombia, with USDA, India, you know, all over the world. How come people don't know it? But our focus is really on research. And now when I get the letters from patients, cancer patients, other conditions, seeing what modified citrus pectin does to them, it's beyond what I've ever dreamt. And it's because of the mechanism. That's why it's so fascinating. You know, we just got 2 more clinical trials in breast cancer approved based on the results with modified citrus pectin in prostate cancer. So it's much bigger than my work, of course, and there are smart and well-known scientists, more educated than I am, that are leading the way now. But it's really, it's an amazing gift from nature. So, and we know how it works. So that's a little bit of an answer for this one. And I thank all of you. I went a few minutes overboard, but I got excited just because we're getting now the results of the clinical trials we just published on bladder cancer, aggressive bladder cancer, a very solid animal study published in a very good journal by a group of a multi-center group, and amazing results. So I know it's exciting after all these years of work, and I do want to share it with others. So please email us any questions. We do our best to get back to you. And if any of you have specific clinical questions to me, then I'm sure you'll find the way to actually get to me and send me an email, and then we'll get back to you. And again, thank you for your time, and enjoy the beautiful spring.